Welcome everyone to Hawaiian IANDS. I'm your host, Shaun Lether. I am thrilled, beyond thrilled, to welcome our very special guest, Suzanne Giesemann. Suzanne Giesemann is a teacher of personal transformation, an author, and a medium who has been recognized on the Watkins list of the 100 most spiritually influential living people. A former Navy commander with a master's degree in national security affairs, she served as a commanding officer and aide to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. She now shares the Awakened Way, a path to living consciously connected and divinely guided life. She has authored 13 books, 6 best-selling Hemi-Sync recordings, and YouTube videos reaching millions of viewers. She produces the Daily Way inspirational messages, the Awaken Way App, which is a great app, by the way, that you guys can download, and hosts the top-ranking Messages of Hope podcast. She leads classes, workshops, and retreats, and serves as faculty with the Shift Network and Humanities team. She is a member of the Evolutionary Leaders Circle, a group of thought leaders from diverse disciplines who help support a global shift in consciousness. Additionally, Suzanne will be hosting the upcoming Awakened Way Alaska cruise this August 12th through 19th, and we'll put a link in the chat so you can check that out. It looks absolutely amazing. Suzanne is known for her joyful, down-to-earth style of making deep spiritual concepts easy to understand. She laces her teaching with evidence-filled stories of the greater reality and practical tools that produce the personal experience of our multidimensional nature. Her messages bring hope and healing that go straight to the heart. You can learn more about Suzanne at her website, www.suzannegiesemann.com. Please, everybody, welcome Suzanne Giesemann.
Hey, thank you, Shaun. And hi, everybody. I somehow thought this was going to be a small group in Hawaii, but this is, like Shaun said, a global group and people just from all over. I just love it. This is my bedtime here, though, on the East Coast of the U.S. I have news for you. I am thrilled, though. Once we just tune into spirit, the energy gets flowing, and I'll probably be high all night. This is my passion to talk about all of these metaphysical topics, and I know that they're favorites for many of you as well. Let me shift my view here. Okay. Shaun, do you know how to pin me to the top?
Yep. I think you're pinned. So you go ahead and you get going, and yep, you should be pinned.
Super. There we go. So the topic that we propose to talk about this evening is connecting with spirit and ever-present help in challenging times. And I can't see all of you on the screen at once, but I know that if I were to ask for you to raise your hands and say, how many of you have been through challenging times in, say, the past 5 years? Of course, it would be unanimous because that's life. And I was just thinking as we were warming up here about a time when I was on my mountain bike with my husband, Ty. We're not crazy mountain bike riders, but we just love to get out there on the trail and get out in nature. And I'd had a very taxing week doing a lot of presentations, a lot of energy drain. And I was looking forward to get out on the trail and having what we call a nice flowy, buttery ride. We were living in Florida at the time, so no big hills or mountains, but just, a lot of twists and turns. And it was wonderful. At first, I'm just riding along and I'm mellow, and it was exactly what I needed. I'm in the nature, in amongst the trees. And then all of a sudden we hit this part that was mildly, as they say in mountain bike terminology, technical. And that means a lot of roots, a lot of rocks. And suddenly I have to hold on. I have to focus. I have to pay attention. I'm getting jarred around. And I remember thinking out loud, this is supposed to be relaxing. And I was really irritable all of a sudden. And I hear this booming voice from above say, it's a mountain bike trail, for God's sake. And I busted out laughing. And I just had to stop and pull over and get myself together. It cracked me up so much. The message was clear. You get on a mountain bike, you expect to get jarred around a little bit. And this is the message for all of us. This is life in human form, for God's sake. You're going to get jarred. You're going to get bounced around. You're going to hit a few bumps and rocks and maybe get a little hurt. But you are not only human. This is something I can guarantee you. It's something that many of you who have had spiritually transformative experiences and near-death experiences know very well. You're not only human, but I can tell you it's not something that I knew we're still at most of my life, for over half of my life. The older I get, it's going to be a little bit half and half of my life. But at least for the first 4.5 decades of my life, I was pretty sure we were only human. In fact, a lot of country singers are still convinced of that, right? I just heard it on the radio yesterday. You're only human. And I thought, no, you're not. You don't get it yet. If we're not only human, then what are we? Well, we're beautiful souls. And my good news for you right now is there is nothing wrong with you at the level of the soul. You are not broken. You as a soul are completely whole. The concept of soul retrieval is simply a concept, and using English words to somehow show you that there may be parts of your energetic field that are off balance. But I have talked to some very well-known shamans who say, well, yeah, this is true. You can't really break the soul. The soul is pure light. Those who've had NDEs have experienced our true nature as these beautiful, oh, I just got dizzy just feeling it, these beautiful shining lights. You can't divide up light, rip and tear light. These are analogies that we use to describe energy that might be out of balance, but you are completely whole. And you are a soul playing a role as a human that definitely can get off balance. So this evening, connecting with spirit in challenging times, this is the promise that you as a spirit have, that you are not stuck in your human role. Once you learn that the soul is right here, always accessible, and that with practical tools, you can access the part of you that never changes, then it doesn't matter what challenge you're facing. It doesn't matter what you're going through. You can shift to the spacious awareness of the soul, just like that, and find peace. Because peace isn't out here. It's always here in awareness, and you are awareness itself. I want to tell you that this background that Shaun read to you, the Navy commander, aide to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, that was a whole different life for me. Not knowing I was not only human at that time, definitely was knocked around a bit by the waves of human energy. And so I relied on my left brain to reason things through, to deal with things logically. And what did I do when things got tough? Well, my only tool was to do what they taught me in the Navy. Suck it up. I was in the last aircraft in U.S. airspace on 9/11, the very last one. A lot of people think it was the president's aircraft. He was already on the ground. I was in the air with the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, the head of the whole U.S. military. We were on our way to Europe and had to turn around, come back, and flew right over Manhattan. Went back to our office building, the Pentagon, and stared at that gaping hole in the side of it and dealt with the aftermath of that in the following days. I was a mess on the inside. I didn't know how to handle that. What do? Turn to prayer, but I was raised with no religion, so I had no tools. So what did I do? I put in my retirement papers. I wasn't eligible for 2 more years, so I just sucked it up. Working in the Pentagon, they handed us gas masks to keep in our desk in case of attack. I mean, this is human life, right? Because people who don't understand who we are live with a lot of drama. And so there was a lot of drama at the Pentagon, just as I'm sure there was in your life and has been over the years. So I went off sailing with my husband, retired, and the very next day, we had sold our house and cars and just went off and lived this idyllic life until life caught up with us with a phone call that changed everything. And that was that my stepdaughter, Susan, who was a sergeant in the Marine Corps. Many of you have heard me talk before and have seen this picture. This is my stepdaughter. She was crossing the flight line at work and was struck and killed by lightning. She wanted to go to Iraq and serve, and her husband said, no, it's too dangerous. So she stayed home. And you know what? She was a bright light, and I don't feel she was meant to live a full life in human terms, because it didn't matter if she'd gone to Iraq or stayed home. Her path was to be where she is right now, across the veil, helping me, because it's due to Susan's passing that I went down a completely different path than the one I started out on. And having no idea there was a greater reality, that there is an afterlife, Susan's death propelled me to find out what it is that really animates these bodies. And it's the soul. We can call it a spirit, a soul, it doesn't matter. It's the life force that's breathing you. Try to stop breathing on your own. You are being breathed by something so vast, so powerful, that all those who have had near-death experiences and try to squeeze that back into a body, they say it's almost painful to try to live once you've experienced that expanded state. So we get to taste expanded states in meditation, and that's what changed my life. Because somehow I knew back in 2006, if I wanted to find out if Susan really still exists, I needed to start meditating. And in 2006, not everybody was doing it, and I didn't really know what to do. So I just sat quietly every day with military discipline. I'm going to do this till I connect with Susan. But I didn't really know what I was doing. So I would say, Susan, I want to sense you. Susan, I want to see you. And that was my sole purpose. But it awakened my soul. And I soon realized that I began to know things, and my intuition came back online. And this is the promise for you too. I know many of you have a regular meditation practice. Some of you used to, and you gave it up because it wasn't producing what you wanted. Well, the soul will nudge you back on track like they nudged you to listen tonight when there are more things for you to learn. And this is also the promise of life in human form. There is always more to learn. I don't have all the answers, but I could not be more happy with the answers that come from spirit now that I've learned how to connect with them. And this is the ever-present help in challenging times that I want to share with you this evening. You are never alone. You are part of one great big web that connects all of us. It's not a physical web, of course not. It's energetic and filled with information. It's holographic. Any place here in this physical world contains access to all the information in the cosmos, all that is. I know this from now over a decade of sitting every day, opening up a connection so much greater than anything I ever imagined. Yes, I connected with Susan after a medium brought her through to my husband and me first, with evidence that we couldn't deny. Imagine you're not quite sure there's an afterlife, and you sit with this woman who doesn't know your last name because you're skeptical and you're not going to tell her what it is. And she says, there's a young woman here in spirit, and she's wearing a brown uniform, and she's standing in front of you, sir, saying, Daddy, Daddy. And she's dancing in front of you, Suzanne. And she died rather suddenly, and I have this tingly feeling up my arm like an electrical current. I'm sobbing at this point because, of course, I wanted to hear from Susan, but how could this woman know these things? How do you explain that she knows these things? There's no other explanation than that this is Susan. The clincher for me, there was a lot more in that reading that I won't go into now, but was when that medium said, and your daughter is bringing with her a little baby boy who she wants to introduce to you. But he's stepping back shyly, sucking his thumb. And what that medium could not have possibly known was that Susan was 6 months pregnant with a boy when she was killed, our only grandchild. So it's evidence like that that changes your life. I'm very grateful to Diane Corcoran, Colonel, U.S. Army retired, who was for a while the president of the International Association of Near-Death Studies. She had faith in me when someone suggested that I would make a good keynote speaker for an annual IANDS conference. At that time, they only had scientists and PhDs, and we call them big heads in the Navy, right? I had a master's degree, but I also had something else with an M, medium, behind my name. She had the courage to convince the board to let a medium speak. And it was the evidence that convinced them, because I bring a lot of evidence to this work. I'm not satisfied when talking across the veil that I'm really talking to spirits unless they give me evidence. So I'm grateful to Diane Corcoran, and I bring her up tonight because she crossed the veil on Sunday, passed to the spirit world. And I know she had a lot of physical challenges in the last few years of her life. And I know right now she has kicked that motorized wheelchair across a cliff somewhere and is dancing in the spirit world, because I can guarantee you these bodies are just what we call people suits. And once we shed them, we return to our beautiful state of being light beings, and we can take on whatever form we like. And just for fun, I'll tell you what I've been told from those across the veil, and other mediums as well have been told this. We usually choose to appear about 35 years old in perfect health and perfectly proportioned if we want to have a body at all. And then we get to travel around in spirit and visit our family and friends and see what they're up to, both in physical forms and those who passed before us. This sounds Pollyanna, doesn't it? But it's the evidence that lets me know it's so. So let me just, before we talk about how you can access higher consciousness, I love to throw in stories from my readings and other experiences with the evidence, because it's what has convinced me beyond any doubt that there is an afterlife and we are eternal souls. This app that Shaun mentioned, my Awaken Way app, we just brought it online 4 months ago, and over 18,000 people now are enjoying the daily messages that I post from spirit. I sit right here in this room and get a message. I've gotten them for years now. There are over 5,000 of those messages in the app, which is completely free. The whole purpose of it is to inspire people, to uplift you every day, and provide other tools right there in the app. So go to any of the app stores and look up Awakened Way and join the community of kindred spirits. So one woman wrote to me, she said, I love the feature where you push the inspire button and it pulls up exactly what message you need that day. Well, it doesn't just happen by accident, my friends. You need to get centered first and connect to the web. This is part of the training for all of us, that we need to shift out of only human mode and acknowledge I am a soul. So anytime you ask for guidance, even if it's using an app to push an oracle button like the inspire button, please take a few deep breaths, calm down the body, slow down the brain, come into balance. And now from the heart, ask spirit, when I push this button, will you please send me the perfect message that I need to hear right now? So I got an email from a woman who did exactly that. And she said, Suzanne, it is so cool. I got the perfect message from my son, Ty, in spirit. In fact, your husband had just commented on a message and it was signed Ty. And I had asked my son for a sign from him. And there's the name Ty right in front of me. It was just perfect timing. So I saw that and I decided to email back to her. So as I'm emailing her, I got this wave of lightheadedness and I recognize it. The first time that ever happened to me, I thought, oh my God, something's wrong with me. Now I realize it's a spirit stepping into my field. And what is a spirit? Still a person, just somebody that's no longer in a body. Well, why would I feel a spirit just then? It had to be this woman's son. I do not normally see the spirits. I couldn't describe them if I had to, but they put images in my mind and they play charades. I can see body movements. I knew this was her son. And I said, well, if you're here with me, you must know how I work. I need evidence. I need to tell your mom something that will prove to her when I say, hey, as I'm typing this email to you, your son dropped in on me. So what do you have for me? Just talk to those across the veil, just like that, from the heart, in an expanded state. And this young man, after delivering a lovely message of love for his mom, he gave me the evidence of going like this. And he drew back an arrow. That's all I saw, but I knew it was significant. I described that to his mom and I said, this is a double meaning. There's something meaningful about the arrow and the bow with your son, but also it's a message like Cupid and love, just so much love for you. And he is just fine across the veil. Well, that mom wrote back to me and she said, that message with the bow and arrow is profoundly important. I've attached a video. Move forward in the video to minute 54.19 seconds, and you'll see why. Well, I went to that video and it turned out to be a video of the young man's funeral. He passed at age 21. When I fast forwarded, there's his father eulogizing his son, and you can imagine the raw grief that was on his face. And the father said, I didn't get to attend my son's 21st birthday celebration because of COVID. But if I had been there, I would have told him a story about Native Americans. You see, they have this tradition. And right there on the camera, the father went like this and pulled back an arrow as if he was holding a bow. He made the exact same motion that son made when he dropped in on me from the spirit world to prove to his parents, I was at my own funeral. I'm not dead and gone. I love drop-ins like that. That's what I call it. When I'm not sitting to do a reading for someone, I have no idea who's across the veil. This time I knew it was a son because it was in that email, but here he is. Doesn't happen too often, those drop-ins, but that bow and arrow story was really significant because the dad went on to explain that in the tradition, you know, at age 21, it's like that person is set free from the family to go off on their own. And dad said that he knew now his son was free. What a perfect piece of evidence for that son to give from across the veil, isn't it? To say, yes, dad, I'm free, but I'm still here with you. I call that economy of words from the spirit world, right? They just give me a quick image and yet it holds a whole message for all of us. Because I wasn't reading that woman's mind. This is interactive. I can sense his personality, his character. This is very real. Your loved ones who have passed are still part of your life. Of course, they attend their funeral. We say all these beautiful things about them. They want to hear it, right? And they definitely drop in on weddings, anniversary celebrations. They're there at their birthday and your birthday. Every time I do a session for someone, they include current events in my client's life. I ask them for these things so that my client knows they're still around you. They even know what's in your thoughts. So if you have any regrets about things you didn't say to someone you love who has passed, an apology, or asking for forgiveness, a thank you, anything at all, don't worry. They already know about it. It was very clear once they crossed the veil, and they have no judgment whatsoever. They see clearly. This is a emotion that I see a lot from spirits. I see so much differently now. It's all about love. If we can come to understand this now, that it's all about love, and say these things before someone passes, see from the soul's perspective, that would change everything in our lives. Well, you can do that in an instant, can't you? Think back to some time when someone hurt you. It's very obvious they didn't know. You're not only human. When you realize hurt people, anything we do that hurts another person, we do out of ignorance. So when you see with the eyes of the soul, forgiveness is that easy. We're not condoning acts that hurt people. We're just saying, I understand where that came from. And if you can understand, and if in my forgiveness, I can make your path easier, then we're just going to bring more love into this world and really fulfill our purpose for being here. You see how this path of understanding who we are really makes this life so much more meaningful. I was so honored to serve my country, but there is no greater honor than to serve spirit and to help others come to know you're not only human, you're part of one big web connecting all that is here and across the veil, which is right here. It's just a metaphor, this veil. The veil is the body, actually, you know. The brain filters out awareness of what is right here. Every reality is interpenetrating our own, just different frequencies that the brain blocks our awareness from perceiving. And the third principle, you're not only human, you're part of one big web. The third principle of this awakened way that I teach is that the creative and healing force of the universe is love. Love really is the answer, but not the human type. That state of pure connection, that when you feel it, you can't help but love another. And that connection exists always at the soul level. This is what has changed the most for me, from sitting quietly every day and setting the story aside. I can talk about this for hours. I can tell you stories for hours. And yet you can get it at one level, but you need to have your own experience of yourself as a soul and to experience the greater reality yourself to really shift things for you. So I call these the 3 E's to the soul's evolution. How do you change your life, yourself? First, the first E is educate yourself. And you're doing that right now. Programs like Shaun's Hawaiian IANDS and the Greater IANDS group and all of these many programs that are available to us educate us about the greater reality, open our minds to our limitless nature. And then the second E is experience for yourself through contemplative practices. I'm going to lead you through my 3-minute sip of the divine practice before the evening is over. And then after you experience your spacious nature consciously, the third E is engage higher consciousness. You notice when that young man dropped in on me, I didn't just say, oh, there's a spirit here. No, I went, who are you? What do you have to say? I engaged him because every expression of consciousness is sentient. It carries the same characteristics of the source. It's creative and intelligent, sometimes pretty humorous too. Like it's a mountain bike trail, for God's sake, right? So I have people that ask me in workshops, who do you think that was that showed up in my bedroom? And I sensed this spirit and I didn't know what to do. And I said, well, did you ask them who they are? Did you ask them, why are you here? It sometimes doesn't occur to us that we can do that, but you sure can. So engage higher consciousness. We do that all the time when we pray, right? God help me. That's engaging higher consciousness. But you can engage guides, you can engage angels, you can engage your own loved ones who have passed, simply by understanding they are here. If it serves the greater good, they will merge their energy field with yours and you can have a conversation. So getting to know your soul, first, it helps to understand what the soul is. It's this awareness that you already have. The part of you that never changes is your I am nature. What do I mean by that? You as a person are living out a story, aren't you? I see several people on the screen now, and I see your names, and I won't call you out, but that's the John Smith story and the Mary Jones story that I'm looking at in a body. We could write a biography about each one of you, right? With all your memories. And that's your story. But who are you when you set the story aside? That's what we do in meditation. We sit quietly, set the story aside, and what remains? Just being with no story. I have a gifts page on my website, and it has a lot of free stuff there. Meditations. One of them I highly recommend is the Journey of Consciousness. It will guide you to this state of having no story. You just leave everything behind. Some people are afraid of that. Well, if I don't have a story, what am I? It's just nothingness. It's just emptiness. That's human point of view. Turn it around. Could it also be fullness, pure potential to be anything at all, to create anything you want when you get back into the story? This is the promise of meditation. It's the promise of the journey. The soul is you as the story and beyond the story. The soul is like a deck of cards. All this potential to deal out any hands and play, right? And right now, you in this body with a name, are you the soul playing the hand of you? State your name. And so for a while, you play that hand and you have all these experiences, and then the hand is over and the cards go back into the deck. But they're always there, and they can always be dealt in that exact hand again to greet other loved ones, to interact with loved ones from across the veil. But the soul is so much more than the story. It is spacious and vast and aware that it's connected to all that is. So we need to learn to set the story aside and simply be the light and merge and flow and dance with any other aspect of consciousness, with guides who are always here to help you, with the angels who help large numbers of people at once, unlike guides who are assigned to you. And you can merge and flow and dance with your loved ones who have passed. You can merge and flow with the field of people here. We call that psychic work, because you're not limited to this bodily experience. You are both human and spirit. How do you access the soul? Simply with intention, by setting the story aside, by going to the heart. You drop into soul perspective many times in your life without even realizing you're doing it. Here's a very brief exercise for you right now. Just join me in this, just to remember when the soul was in the forefront. Why don't you just close your eyes for a moment and take a nice deep breath to relax. Doesn't that feel good? Let's take one more nice relaxing breath. Okay, now move your awareness down to the heart area. In fact, do me a favor and put your hand on your heart. And I'd like you to repeat after me silently. You are so very loved. And feel that. That just helped you get centered and balanced. You can put your hand in your lap if you'd like. But now from this centered, balanced place, let's ask higher consciousness, however that shows up, to put into your awareness a memory in this lifetime when you spontaneously acted completely selflessly and did an act of love or kindness for someone for no other reason than love and connection. Let that bubble up in awareness. Feel how that felt, that moment of selfless, caring, giving, serving, connecting. You feel that? You remember how good that felt? And it just happened. You didn't plan it. Okay, you can allow your eyes to open. That was the soul. It's always part of you. The soul has no agenda, no story. It acts spontaneously many times, and it just knows pure connection, and it inspires this human role to do things that are selfless. That's so simple, but we make the soul more complicated than it really is. It's this inner light that's in you that knows only love. So you know the soul. It's you beyond the human opposites. There's nothing wrong with being human, but it does often cause us to feel separate. I remember one of several spiritually transformative experiences when I was lying on a healer's table, and she was doing all these woo-woo things that back in my Navy days I would have said were crazy, putting crystals on my body, right, and ringing bells overhead of me. Oh my God, the first time I saw that people actually did that, I thought, that's crazy. And now I just love that kind of thing because it feels so good now that I'm attuned to the flow of energy. But there she was working on me, and I just set the story aside, and the next thing you know, I was so aware of all of these beings of light standing around that table I was lying on. It was so real, like people who've had an NDE say, more real than this life. And they didn't have faces and they didn't have bodies, yet they were beings. And they all transmitted to me at the same time, now do you remember? And I just started sobbing because it's remembering who we really are. And we forget only because we have had a human lifetime of focusing outside of ourselves, focusing on what the physical senses feed us. And this is why it's so important to have a regular practice of setting aside your focus on the physical senses. And that's why we allow the eyes to close and we sit quietly and we focus on our inner life. Do you know that each one of us comes into this life with a set point of happiness? You might know some people that are super bubbly and happy most of the time. You might know somebody that's kind of dour and sour most of the time and has always been that way. You can have two siblings in a family that are really different with their happiness set point, right? Okay, so no matter what your happiness set point is, you win the lottery, you have a great success at work, and you definitely get happier for a while. But research has shown after a while, at the most a year, you will return to your happiness set point, no matter how much money or material world success you gain. You can have a terrible death or tragedy in the family, a physical problem that causes you great challenges. The world can be going to hell and you lose your happiness. But you know what? After about a year, once things settle out, you'll go back to your happiness set point. It's what you came into this world with. The hand you, the soul, dealt this lifetime for what you can learn from being that way. But it has been proven, while you can't change your happiness set point externally, you can change it by changing your inner world. That is quite the promise. I can guarantee you it works. I mean, I've always been pretty bubbly. My parents called this my enthusiasm. Okay, I'm always like this. Well, not, okay, but there's the first time my guides snagged me here this evening. They're like, not always. No, I'm not always like this, but always pretty bubbly. And yet, the inner peace that I found, the ongoing even keel that I now enjoy, is a direct result of a dedication and commitment to a daily practice of setting the story aside, of shutting out the outer world and being present with the inner world that is connected to all that is. So this sip of the divine that I'll share with you in just a few minutes is a beautiful way to do that. And it only takes 3 minutes a day. So if any of you are saying, oh my God, she wants me to meditate, that's the only way I'm going to raise my happiness set point. How many of you drink a special beverage every day that takes a couple minutes to prepare and drink? 3 minutes maybe. If you can do that, you can do 3 minutes a day to change your life, right? And then things open up. So I'm going to show you how to connect to higher consciousness in this 3-minute practice. And who knows where that'll lead. I've had people, let's see, the YouTube video where I shared has over 150,000 views. Somebody else where I shared it has, well, we're up to way past the 500,000 views. People doing the sip of the divine. And the reports are 3 minutes isn't enough after a while because it feels so darn good. You need more, maybe 5 minutes, maybe 7 minutes. So see, you don't have to go to an ashram in India. And you don't have to spend an hour a day. Who has that these days, right? But 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 7 minutes a day to connect with your higher self, to feel yourself as a soul, to possibly start now feeling your own loved ones. Let me tell you, it took me several years of sitting in the silence till I connected clearly with my Susan. And some people say, oh my God, that long? But if I had given up, I wouldn't have had it at all, would I? In the meantime, I discovered the soul. In the meantime, my intuition came on board really big. In the meantime, I started knowing things and I was more peaceful and I found bliss. And Susan told me she deliberately hung back for 3 years so I would get all of those other gifts first. Yeah. So don't ever give up. We never know what's round the next corner. And I guarantee you, it just keeps getting better. This is the spiral of the soul's evolution, onward and upward all the time. I love the connection I experience with spirit in my readings. It knocks my socks off. May I never not be awed at a reading. I just did one 2 days ago and brought through a woman's mother in the spirit world. The mother hands this little dog to my client, and I knew the client had taken the woman's dog when she died, and she was grateful for that and thanking her, and that's exactly right. And then the mom told me a little bit about that dog, and I said, your mother just told me the dog drinks a human drink that's brown. It's either coffee or tea. All I can see is the liquid, but I know that's kind of bizarre. And my client said, yeah, the dog drinks tea. That's what I'm talking about, evidence. Death is not the end. You don't die. We honestly have nothing to fear. Pain is temporary. Nobody wants it. But you can learn to set all of that aside and get guidance and insights and connect to guides who have the bigger picture. Albert Einstein said, no problem is ever solved at the level at which it originated. Where are all of your problems? This level, the human level. But you are not only human. You're a soul. Learn to shift your awareness to soul awareness and access guidance and access answers. You don't need a psychic. You don't need a medium. I'd like all mediums to be out of business. That means we've all learned we're not only human. And all it takes is getting centered and balanced, clearing out dense energy. Working with your energy is incredibly important. I had a little disagreement with my husband a couple weeks ago. Kind of unusual for us. Things could not be better now. So painful times lead to improvements. But boy, it sucks when you're going through it, doesn't it? Right? Those relationship challenges. So I asked my guides for help. And I worked on clearing my energy during that time. There's a gift on my gifts page called the 10-minute transformation. It's for clearing your chakras when they're kind of the energy centers. When they get a little gunked up, Well, they got gunked up from the little disagreement we had. Somebody cuts you off in traffic, you get gunked up. Anything that we do that's not in alignment with the soul can cause the flow of the life force through you to slow down. You want to connect to spirit, to loved ones across the veil and your guides, you need to clear out the gunk. You need to be cleaning your energy body just like you clean your physical body regularly. So learn about energy flow. I had to call off 2 readings in a row because I was so gunked up. It happens to all of us because we are human. But with tools and practices like the 10-minute transformation, chakra clearing, you can clear this vessel and then shift your awareness. I teach this in a 7-step method that I call the Bless Me method. You can find that video online on YouTube. Search for 7 Steps to Higher Consciousness. It's also on the Awaken Way app, and it's also on my gifts page. So I'm very much into practical methods that anybody can use, because anybody, you can learn to connect with loved ones who have passed and guides, because you're not only human. And I say this because I never saw a spirit my whole life until after my Susan passed and I started down this path. You do not have to be a born medium to connect with higher consciousness. So the number 1 key in doing so is belief that it's possible. And that's why I'm really happy if I can serve as a model for you. That if this left brain Navy officer who was really by the book, black and white thinking, can now connect with guides and angels. Check out my Archangel Michael is Real video. That one will really show you how real the greater reality is. Then I know any of us can do it. And my guides have told me so. So it's not just Suzanne speaking to you. I'm just the voice for the higher ups. All right. So belief is key. Belief that there is a greater reality, that you can connect as well. Right. Then intention. Set a very clear intention to connect personally with guides and angels and loved ones. This is all about connecting with higher consciousness in troubling, challenging times. It's my guide, Sanaya, who give us the daily messages on my app, who said, what do you do when the world gets you down? You realize this is not the only world. And this awareness makes all the difference in the world. Right? I didn't know that till I was middle-aged. And so life was really tough at times, and you just sucked it up. And that really doesn't work. And it leads to overeating, it leads to drinking, it leads to shopping, it leads to all the many ways we seek comfort outside ourselves. That little practice I had you do where you put your hand on your heart and you say, you are so very loved. My guides just told me that 2 days ago. It stopped a food craving like that. I was stunned. I still get food cravings. I still come out of some readings or sometimes and I think, boy, I can't wait for happy hour to start. And these days I can't drink more than a glass without getting tipsy because I'm so sensitive, but I love that first glass. And the other day I came out of a webinar and I was knocked off balance. I was like, is it 5 o'clock yet? And my guide said, put your hand here and just remind yourself, you are so very loved. Completely gone, the urge to drink. Completely gone. Stunning. Why? This helps you connect with your soul. It also gets the flow of oxytocin, a beautiful hormone. It's called the love hormone. If you don't feel that when you do that, then there's just some density that maybe you can ask your guides, what do I need to clear out so that I believe I am so very loved, that I feel it? And keep doing that every day. And tell yourself that until you feel it. and then watch how your life changes. So why don't we do this sip of the divine that I told you about, where SIP stands for sit in peace. I don't even want to call it a meditation, because then people have expectations and they think you have to do something special and that you're going to have bells and whistles. It is a meditation, but it's really just a practice for aligning with the soul and connecting with higher consciousness. Really, it's like having a genie in a bottle. Once you realize you are always connected to higher consciousness, your guides are always here, and they are waiting for you to ask them questions and will answer you. So before we do it, how might those answers come? You might see an image in your mind's eye, like sometimes I get visuals. You might simply feel and know something. You might have a thought arise that I guarantee you will sound exactly like your own thoughts. So you might think you're making it up. But what does it have to say? Is it helpful? Act on it. You might sense nothing at all at first. And then the next day, something will grab your attention, and it's the answer to your question. So use these 3 minutes of sitting in peace, and I'll tell you how it works, to ask the question, what is it I need to know now? You can change the question up down the road, but for the first few weeks, just that one question, what is it I need to know now? And you're going to first take several nice relaxing breaths like we did a few minutes ago with your eyes closed, to just relax. Get as relaxed as you possibly can. Notice where you're holding any tension in your body. So the 3 minutes starts once you've relaxed. Don't just spend the whole time getting relaxed. And when you're in that nice relaxed state, set the story aside. What does that mean? You're going to notice your to-do list bubble up. Pretend it's a cloud in the blue sky. Just notice it and let it float past. Then just be passive and notice what other thoughts come up. This is training you in focusing and noticing the nature of the mind. It will always put thoughts in your awareness, but you want to start noticing what stands out from your normal thoughts. And that's the beauty of the sip of the divine. As you sit peacefully and you ask one question, what is it I need to know now? You will notice what stands out from the normal stuff that will pop up in those 3 minutes. There's no need to get frustrated at thoughts that pop up. It's just going to happen. You get used to it. Just keep going back to noticing. All right, what's going to pop up next? Is it the answer to my question? Just be like a Navy ship. Here's a cool Navy analogy. Like a radar on a Navy ship. What does it do? It just passively scans for what's out there. So you're just going to sit for 3 minutes and notice thoughts, sensations, and feelings that arise. And if they're new and helpful, there's your answer. So I have these little speakers here that are timed exactly to 3 minutes. And I'm going to turn them on. I'm not sure if you'll hear the tones or not. I think you might. You can just focus on the tones, focus on your breathing. I'll help you get relaxed. Then I'll start the tones. And for 3 minutes, I'll ask the question for you. Just notice. Okay? You might notice that you get frustrated. It's all just an experience. You can't do it wrong. So you ready? All right. Let's just allow our eyes to close. Take in a breath. Let's do it to the count of 4, slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4. And exhale to the count of 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Feeling nice and relaxed. Let's breathe again. slowly in. And as you exhale, release any tension anywhere in your body you find it as you scan your body. Most likely the neck, the shoulders, the jaw, your face. Just relax them. Notice how much more relaxed you feel in just a few seconds. And now as you breathe in again, I'm going to start the timer here. The speakers. Move awareness to your heart. And knowing that you're speaking as a soul now, connecting soul to soul with any higher being who has the answer you need, most likely a guide. Ask the question, what do I need to know now? Wasn't that nice to sit in peace for 3 minutes at the end of the day? Beautiful. They call that yoga for the mind. Very nice. So whether or not you got an answer, you were connected to higher consciousness there. Soon you'll hear something and you'll say, well, I think I made that up. But then you'll realize, but I wouldn't have thought of that. And that's the point. It's coming from higher consciousness, the super consciousness. So I challenge you to do the sip of the divine every day for 3 weeks, just 3 minutes a day for 3 weeks. That's how long it takes to instill a new habit. I've had people who used to meditate and gave it up, and they started this up again, and it just accelerated their spiritual journey. And so just maybe open a file on your computer for answers that you get when you do that, or start in a journal and write down your experience, even if it's like, I got nothing today, or I was frustrated. Just stay with it, and you will start to have spiritually transformative experiences, the sip of the divine. So we're asking guides to help us. Who are these guides? You have at least one who's assigned to you from life. You may not be aware that they're in your energy field all the time, but they are, just like the hair on your head. Can you feel it right now without touching it? No, it's just so much a part of you. You don't realize it's there. I have some Hemi-Sync recordings, one of them working with your guides, in which I guide you through an exercise to have your guides step out of your energy field and see what you feel, the difference. Oh my goodness, I did that with my guides just the other day, just because I hadn't done it in a while. The difference is phenomenal. It's like a coldness, a noticeable change. And when I had them step back in, I said to my guide, that was so real. Give me a sign that I can trust that. See, this is another way you can engage your guides and your loved ones across the veil. When you interact with them, say, I know this was you, but what sign are you going to give me to show me that was you? This is a really fun game that they love to play with us. They don't mind being put to the test. And whatever pops into your mind immediately, a word, a song, a visual, watch for that to come up in beautiful ways in your life in the next 2 to 3 days. It's magical and wondrous. Play the sign game often. They love to show you that they're very much around. I have stories that I tell monthly in my monthly connection webinars. One of them had to do with when I put my guides to the test, and I said, what sign are you going to give me that thing you just shared with me in meditation was real? And my guide said, a watermelon. The watermelon stories were off the charts within the next 24 hours. But this is, I mean, how else are they going to show their presence to you, right? By the way, my next monthly connection webinar is Tuesday night. Yeah, this next coming Tuesday. So always lots of the latest evidential stories and the latest teaching from Spirit. We have a beautiful community that gathers monthly for that. So we'd love for you to join us. You can find out more about any of my upcoming events right on my homepage. All right. In the meantime, you ask your guides for evidence, they will give it to you. And the more you work with them, the more you know how they work with you. You'll feel their presence. I often get a twitch in my lip here from my main guide. I can't show it to you because I can't do it physically, but my lip will twitch, and people who've seen me channeling or doing readings, all of a sudden the lip twitches, and it's my guide saying, trust this, we're right here. So I'll just, before we do Q&As here for a little bit, I'll share my most magical moment that left no doubt in my mind that guides are real. And that was when my husband and I were camping out west. We'd been on the road in our RV on tour like we do every summer. For 2 months, I had taken a stack of books from the bookstore, hadn't looked at them. They were up in the cabinet. And as soon as I'd finished one, I'd pull down another one. And I had finished a book. It's like, oh boy, I get to start a new book. So I look through the books. Oh, I think I'll read this one. And I go to sit down and I hear my main guide say, not that one. You will read this one. Very specific book. And I said, silently, I don't want to read that one. I want to read this one. No, you will read that one. It's in my head, just thoughts. Okay. That's how they speak to me. I've learned you can say no once, but woe be it unto us if we push back against our guides more than once, because they really do know best. So, okay, that's when I again salute and say aye, aye. And I follow the guides and I put the book back and I pull this one down. So that's like, okay, interesting. I open the front cover and my guide, Boris, says, turn to the back. So I turn to the back cover and he says, no, inside. It's this specific. Turn inside the back cover. I turn inside the back cover and there's this photo of scenery that we had just seen the day before. 2,000 miles from home, 2 months on the road. They pull me to a book that I've not opened. I bought it, but never opened it. And there is scenery from someplace we were the day before. So I look down here and it talks about a spiritual retreat center that's nearby. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this is a sign I'm supposed to go there. So we went the next day. It was 10 miles from where I was. And we showed up there and, oh, they said, you would like to look around? Let us give you a tour. At first, everything seemed real normal, but the farther we went back into their buildings, I started to feel like I was in Hotel California. my guides, I'm hearing like cult. It was downright freaky. Even my husband's looking at me like, can we go now? And we went out into the sunshine as quickly as we could, said, thank you very much for the tour, got back in our RV, got on the road. And I said to my husband, I need to check in with Boris and see what that was all about. And he said, yes, please do. So I go into meditation. I said, Boris, why did you guide me there? And the answer was so clear. Just like using the sip of the divine, right? I just took a few deep breaths, moved my awareness to the heart, shifted to soul awareness, connecting that way with Boris. Why did you guide me to that place? He said, number one, to let you know, we know always exactly where you are and where you're headed. I mean, literally to the mile where I was. And number two, he said, if you look at the rest of the books in your cabinet, some of them are getting a little bit out there metaphysically. Your mission is to teach only love. Stick to the basics. And he was right. We've all seen, you can go down a bunch of rabbit holes with spiritual metaphysical books, and some of them were really fascinating, but it's not my calling. I'm really have a very clear mission from Spirit to show mainstream people, anybody can connect with higher consciousness. This is real, and it really is all about love. So we got to the campground that night. I got in the cabinet. I sorted through the books, and I asked Boris, which one's okay to read? Because I didn't at the time. I just bought them. But you can tune in moment by moment, and I'm tuning in saying which one. And there was a few that went in a trash bag, and I love books, but I now trust my guides moment by moment, and it went right in the garbage dumpster at the campground. What a stunning, stunning example. Please, I hope you will learn to access and contact your guides for the most mundane things and the most important things, and they will guide you unerringly. You'll know in your heart, the more you sit in peace regularly, you'll know what to do intuitively. Do I have a flower here? No, I don't have a flower, but I have a beautiful crystal here, right? A beautiful amethyst. What is this? It's a crystal, an amethyst. How do you know that? Because somebody probably told you that once. We've all seen amethysts, right? Somebody told you it's a crystal, it's an amethyst. Now I'll ask you, is it beautiful? Yes. How do you know that? Nobody had to tell you, did they? Nobody had to teach you what beauty is. You just know. That's the soul that knows. The soul knows truth. The soul knows beauty. The soul knows right from wrong. And it's always here. And it's always accessible. And it's always guiding you. And that's the place and the state from which you connect with any being across the veil. And when you follow that knowing, life is wondrous. There's still going to be pain because it's life, for God's sake, with its ups and downs and its roots and rocks, and we get bumped and knocked around a little bit. But knowing that the soul is always here, that's the relief valve. That's where we find a peace and a connection. And the best part for me, since I found this path, is being able to see the soul in everybody I meet. I didn't used to be that way. It was me against the world, right? Us versus them. Separate beings. Now I see separation, but I see your soul. And that's love. And there's nothing better, is there? Wow. So, Shaun, you wanted me to leave a little time for Q&A. How about that?
Yes. Wow. Thank you so much. If everybody could go ahead and put your questions in chat, since we're not going to have time to get to all of them, and then we'll try to group them together. So send me your questions. And we'll start off with a member from South America who has really been messaging me almost every day for a question for you. What he would like to know is how do you know that what they're telling you is correct? And have you ever had misinformation where they've said something and maybe you misinterpret it, or did they ever make a mistake? That's what he's wanting to know, like how to know.
Are you talking about like in a mediumship reading where I'm connecting with someone's loved one and passing along their information?
Yeah, that, but also just your guides telling you something, like if they...
Yeah, because what you just asked me is exactly what I just answered. You know in your heart, because the soul knows. So it's just the knowing. But as for information coming from spirits, that comes with practice. And that's challenging for mediums, because you need to discern. If you get a no from a client when you say something, what felt different in receiving that information than a yes? You know, how can you really tell the presence of a spirit? So you learn to discern what is an imagination, what's the actual presence of a spirit. Are these my thoughts, or are these the spirit's thoughts? So again, it's what stands out from your normal thoughts, what feels absolutely true in your heart, and what's novel, and always what's helpful and healing, never harmful. Okay.
Thank you. JB and Daryl, are you able to put your questions in chat? Kathy, can you help make sure that people can put their questions in chat? You should be able to chat. Okay, so somebody is asking, which I'll let you remind them. They want to know any specific meditations before mediumship.
Any of the gifts on my webpage will help. And my Hemi-Sync recordings, which are not free, but they're pretty reasonable, have binaural beats added to them that help your brain come into balanced, coherent, whole brain state. They really accelerate the ability to access these expanded states of meditation more easily. And all of the scripts that I narrate in those meditations were given directly from my guides. They carry a higher energy, and they guide you through the practice of connecting. It's an actual series for mediumship that I created.
Okay. So as an analytical thinker, what would you recommend to somebody who's very analytical and thinks a lot?
Okay, so what I have to do here is ask my guides, and this is a practice I love to model for people, because I know I don't have the best answer for that, and they're right here because I asked them to be. So what do we recommend for analytical thinkers? Okay. Recognize that this is, okay, hang on, shift. This is a habituated way of being, relying on analysis. Recognize that we get out of balance by not accessing and activating the flow state of the right hemisphere. With a few breaths, you slow down the brain waves, and this actually allows you to access and activate the non-logical side of your brain, the right brain. So definitely, you're going to want to train yourself in deep breathing practices before you try any accessing of higher consciousness, and hold the strong intention that you set aside the need to think and learn how to be, and then notice what arises from the field without even thinking. Okay.
Very helpful. Okay. In society, in the world in general, do you believe that it's ready to understand that we're more than physical bodies? Do you think society as a whole is ready to hear these messages?
Excuse me. My guides are showing me a dimmer switch, right? that we've come from the dark ages and the light is getting brighter rapidly. But they say we're still in the dim ages. We've moved, we've advanced from dark to dim, but there is definitely brightness ahead. And anybody can see that we have generations of work to do, but the curve is like this. So it's very hopeful, but we will reach a tipping point, and those of us in programs like this are the ones that truly make a difference. When we turn up our inner light, it helps light up the entire grid around the earth. So every one of us makes a difference.
So this is an interesting question. Can you connect to spirits who didn't speak English?
Oh, absolutely. And pets who didn't speak a language, because all information is transmitted energetically and enters into the energy field of each one of us. The brain receives that and translates it into whatever language you speak. So I'll be doing a reading, and all of a sudden I'll be hearing from someone, and I'll just know, this is your grandmother. She never spoke English, did she? And they'll say, no. And in fact, one of my beloved dogs, Gretchen, the day after she passed to the spirit world, came through to me and was just blabbing away in English. I brought through some other woman's pet that was speaking in full sentences to me. Evidence, like my mom has a round box with my paw print on the top. And absolutely, her mom did. I mean, it's mind-boggling. And this is where belief is important. If you think, well, that's impossible, then you will not have that experience.
Right.
Yeah, it's great.
And by believing, we open ourselves up to more of
Yes.
it, right?
Yeah, and hearing other people's stories, which is why I love to share the stories, it opens you to the possibility of having those experiences yourself.
Yeah. Okay, so can we access our spirit guides even if we have cognitive impairments from neurological injury?
The guides are saying yes, but it may be in ways different than you expect. So you might have just tingling feelings in your body or other ways that they're going to get through, or they may just snag your attention with things in the external world. They can get messages through to you on a billboard or license plate, things like that.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Maybe you could elaborate on people expecting, so like a loved one to be a certain way. I remember Esther Hicks, when Jerry died, she could channel Abraham, but Jerry died and she couldn't hear Jerry. And I guess Abraham told her that it was because she was expecting him to be a certain way.
Yes. And so it can be different for different people, and it can also change along the way. So if you haven't been hearing from someone, suddenly you might start hearing from them. They might come to you in dreams only. Trust me, they are trying to get through to you. So, if you don't believe that the butterfly that flew around you in a circle and bounced into your heart was a sign from your loved one, you may be missing out on some great effort they went to get that butterfly, like remote control, to do that. My friend Brenda, when she crossed to the spirit world, tried to use birds to get her son's attention. She's now my mediumship guide. And a lot of people think that, oh, my loved one became a bird. No, they say it's like remote control. And so one day, my dear friend Lynette contacted me and she said, Brenda's son thinks he had a visit from his mom last night. Can you ask her what happened? So I have a very clear connection with Brenda. I said, was that you? I reported back. I said, she says she crash dived a bird inside the house. Absolutely. Her son heard a banging outside the door, showed up at the door with a baseball bat because it's like 2 a.m, opens the door and a bird flies in, and it flies around and it went behind the TV and fell down behind the TV. So I had no idea about this, but Brenda said, absolutely. I was trying to, the bird was cooperating with me, but we blew it.
Did you and Brenda or any of your other guides have an agreement before they passed over? Any sort of?
Oh, we had so many agreements with Brenda, and there was a group of kindred spirits who all put a sign that she wanted them to send her or talk about in a little basket. And at her memorial service, I picked up on 4 of them. 4. It was phenomenal. And then over time, many more. But yeah, she knew she was going to communicate with us. She came to me within hours of passing. Yeah. It's very cool.
Okay. Are there different timelines? I've been hearing information and sometimes don't know which I can trust. Is it ultimately to go within and receive answers, of course, from my own guides, which I think you've answered. But what about the different timelines? You've heard about that, you know, obviously.
I don't know what you're referring to. Timelines.
Okay, so a lot of times people will think, you know, we've been reincarnated and it's you know, vertical or whatever, versus it's all happening at once. I think that is what they're meaning.
Oh, the understanding from my guides is that truly everything is happening at once, but they only go so far when they talk about that, because they say it would blow our minds, explode them. And we can't wrap our heads around it, how it really works.
That's how a lot of stuff for my NDE is. The minute I start trying to remember it, it does. My head feels like it's going to explode. So, okay, let's see what else we have. Did you come up with your own symbols and so forth, or did the guides?
Mostly it's what happens in a reading. If I notice that that is something that somebody else in a future reading might be able to use, I quickly say to my guide, that's a great symbol. For example, doing a reading and I see a caduceus. And I say, I believe your father's showing me he was a doctor. And the client says, yes, he was a doctor. I'll say silently, Brenda, good one. Now, anytime we have a doctor, have him just show me a caduceus. The very next day, the spirit showed me a caduceus. I said, your brother was a doctor. Yes, he was. So you build symbols like that. And this is how a mediumship guide helps. I say it's like they have the spirits in the green room before the medium reading actually begins, and they say, so my medium has these symbols. I can see that you have a tattoo, so you want to go like this, and she'll know that means tattoo. And you pass suddenly, so you want to go like that, and she'll know this. And it becomes like a shorthand.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
How about more about physical symptoms when people are when entities are trying to communicate? What are the?
Well, I gave the spirit world permission to use me like a human pincushion, because it's so evidential when I feel their symptoms in my own body. And I literally go, ow, ooh, I know this dog passed of kidney disease. Yes, he did, because I have a pain in my kidney. Or, oh, I just got a piercing pain in my left eye. Your husband says it affected him his whole life, something that happened in childhood. Yes, he was shot in the eye with a BB and blind in that eye for life. And my heart will palpitate and I suddenly can't catch my breath. And I know they died of congestive heart failure. But the thing is, it immediately goes away the second I report it. But then, for example, I can't catch my breath. I know your mother had COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Yes, she did. And we go on and we talk to mom and we get all of her messages. Then I'm over here talking to dad in the spirit world. And all of a sudden I can't breathe again. That's mom trying to get my attention. She wants to talk some more. You know, they use the symptoms. It's phenomenal to feel what feels like it's my own body, but I know it's just a manipulation of energy, because everything is just energy. Yeah.
Does it ever feel like they're trying to get inside you?
Well, there is no inside me. It's all just a field. There's just
right.
no.
I mean, it doesn't ever feel like that physically, like they're trying to enter.
Merging. It's fabulous. I invite it. I welcome it, because I know we're all beings of light and I have nothing to fear. And so I have some great video clips I love showing people of me doing a reading. And I had one young kid that he had me talking like this, and I was saying, he says, I just like to hang out with my bros, and his parents are staring at the video saying, oh my God, that's him. They just, take over my gestures, or your son is going like this. And they said, that's what he used to do because his back hurts so much. Or there's one favorite one where I'm sitting here and I said, I'm talking to your grandfather and he's just going grump, grump, grump. And she sent me a picture and his lips were exactly like that. It's just so cool. You can't deny this is them. Really cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is beautiful.
Yeah.
So how would you, we have many empaths here, many highly sensitive people, who are used to feeling everybody else's energy. How would you recommend for an empath to get used to feeling their own energy so that then they can distinguish when the energy of other spirits are coming?
I have to stop you a second. This is the second time this has happened in 4 years. I have a drum on the wall and it just twanged by itself. Who is this? Okay, I'm not getting an answer to that. So what do I recommend to empaths for not
to get in touch with their own energy versus other energy from people, of course, they're in the body, but also from the other side. How to distinguish? It's
intention and realizing that we are part of this big web where everything is interconnected. And I like to picture our connections with other beings like a diorama at like a battlefield. You're looking at the big map in the visitor center and you can push a button and it lights up all these little lights from you to this monument and you to this path, right? It lights up the path. I like to imagine our connection with every other being like that. Through our intention, through our thoughts about someone else, we light up our connection with them. The connections are always here. So we're always connected to all other beings, but there are some, because we've interacted with them, that we're aware of the connections, the lighted up circuitry with them. So you can literally set the intention that you must completely disengage yourself from my field at this time, right? And this is like that exercise where you ask your guide to step out of your field. It's really not a geographical space. It's an energetic connection. So you just tell all beings at the end of a reading, you must completely remove your energy from my field now. And they do. And then I like to take a shower of light. It's all just, they're metaphors that actually create an experience. And just nice, refreshing energy that clears out anything that's not mine. I go out in my RV half of the year, and when you wash the dishes or take a shower, that water that's a little dirty is called gray water. So you take this shower of fresh light until the energy that's coming out of the bottom is as sparkly and crystal clear as the energy coming in at the top. No more gray energy coming out at the bottom, right? It's just a way of refreshing yourself. Metaphors are beautiful ways of moving energy.
That's beautiful. And you do that. So if you're doing like several readings, you do that in between each reading, right?
I do one reading anytime. I do readings once a day. That's it. I have so much going on, and they're just very high intense focus. And so I've just learned that's enough for me. Very rarely will I do two, but it doesn't matter. When I finish a reading, I thank the spirits. I say, thank you very much. You must completely leave my field now. And then just a nice, quick 30-second light shower and get on with the next task.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much. I'll ask one question and then let you go, because it's 10:30 your time. And basically somebody would like to know, is there time on the other side?
No, there's not. So if you want to know what that's like, all you have to do is know what it's like in a dream. In your dream state, are you aware of time? Not at all, right? And you want to be somewhere and you're instantly there. And there's no feeling of time passing. Yeah.
Beautiful. I want to thank you so much. And I want to remind everybody to check out this Awaken Way app. It's very cool. And also check out the cruise that's August 12th to 19th. Is that right?
Yes, it's 8 days, 7 nights of sharing together and visiting Alaska. I'm very excited that I was asked to do this. We're going to be talking all about these kinds of things and doing practices, and I'll be channeling my guides, and 14 hours of togetherness on the cruise, each day several hour workshops. So it'll be great.
That's going to be an amazing
I
event.
see that butterflies that Lynn is showing me. Thank you for that.
Yes. Well, thank you again. And I just want to let everybody know there will be a replay. It'll be on the Hawaiian IANDS YouTube channel. Plus, I'll put it in all our groups. And the message, the questions that we didn't have time, I will download them and send them to Suzanne. And then if you have time, you're welcome to put them on the chat or whatever.
Let me just tell you that we do what we do a lot on my podcast is we do special sessions with just Q&A. So go to my YouTube channel. There are already many Q&A sessions there. And on my website is an FAQ page that's an absolute treasury of answers to questions that people ask very often. Shaun, I just want to thank you. You put a lot of effort into this. Your newsletters are amazing, and you just bring a lot of love to it. So thank you to you and your whole support team.
Thank you. My pleasure. I've really enjoyed this, and it's a huge honor that you spoke with us. And we look forward to hearing more from you. And I want to thank Kathy and Loretta and Catherine and for all your help, and everybody for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you all soon. Aloha, everyone. Have a great night.
Good night.